admit them through the waiting room, but we'll just go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, we'll get into just welcome and introductions here once Jenny gets the presentation pulled up.
Okay. Can you see my screen? All right, I think we'll just have to go from this view. So can everybody see the PowerPoint slides?
I can.
Okay, great. All right. So I'll turn it over to Scott.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Welcome and introductions. I'm Scott Perkins. I'm one of the co-founders of Tracking Arkansas, and my partner, Janie Ginocchio, is other founder of Tracking Arkansas. And right now, I guess we can go around the Zoom room real quick, and everybody just kind of say who you are, maybe real quick why you're here. JB, if you wouldn't mind starting off.
Yeah, I got to learn how to use the unmute.
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
I'm Arkansas Alcatraz. I think we all should have to play fair. And honestly, the money that's being pumped into some of these races through ghost entities annoys me. It's like we live in America. We shouldn't have people that cheat. And that's what I feel like is going on in some of this. So
Thank you for
that's
thank you
why I
for being
want to
here.
learn to try to do this, whether it succeeds or not, so be it. But don't let them just, stomp on you. That's the whole point of a lot of this is like, let's try to even the playing field.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for what you've done with your camera and your page. Um, Anita?
Anita Wells from Greene County, and it's, when one candidate has to raise their own money and the other one gets all this money from somewhere else and you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like it's a fair playing field.
No. Didn't seem like it's us either. Thank you for being here. All right, Natalie, you're MVP at this point on our two Tracking University Zoom calls. So Natalie, go ahead.
I'm Natalie. So I'm the executive director of Gravel and Grit, and we were formed to fight the prison, but I think the theme has become transparency and accountability, and ethics. The Ethics Commission is certainly a tool for that. So I guess I'm gonna learn how to use it is important, and so thank you guys for putting this on.
Yeah, we appreciate you and all the Gravel and Grit does too. All right, Mr. Adam.
You let Natalie go first and steal my thunder with Gravel and Grit.
Just notice that it's the chronological order of the chat there.
Yeah, sure, Scott. Hey, I'm Adam Watson. I'm also a director of Gravel and Grit, and we've used, FOIA as a great tool in a lot of our work. So just looking for additional tools to put in the belt for whatever we need going forward. And then I'm also a candidate for the state Senate seat out here and expect some of this to be coming my way soon. So good to have a preview of what will be going on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate everybody's time, and we'll move on to Janie. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
We have a dog that we're navigating here.
Okay. So I'm Jamie Ginocchio, and I'm with Scott, the co-founder of Tracking Arkansas. We're both former journalists. Scott was the legislative and communications director for the Association of Counties for about 7 years. Don't hold it against him.
Thank you.
And he left in 2017 before it got bad. So really, really bad. I was the public policy director for Southern Bancorp for about 5 years. So we've been in the trenches running bills. We know how it used to work, which wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than how it's going now. And so that's part of the reason why we're working to call this out and to help empower people to understand what exactly is happening and what you can do to fight back. So we're here today because of these mailers that everybody's been getting, and we know it's coming from dark money. And so we're going to talk about what dark money mailers actually are. And so we're going to start with the relevant law. So there's three, 7-6-201 through 220 are really the statutes that apply to this particular issue that we're looking at right now in terms of these mailers. And so The first one is that it's the definition of what these are what's called independent expenditures. And these groups that are sending these out and paying for them would be called an independent expenditure committee. And so this kind of the law defines what that is. And so 7-6-201 defines an independent expenditure as expressly advocating for or against a named candidate. It's not done in coordination or consultation with the candidate or their committee, and it's not done at the candidate or committee's suggestion. Okay, so just keep that in mind, especially this word expressly, because we're going to dive into that a little deeper.
Take these. I'm
What?
just gonna take these because you have
Okay.
to pay attention.
Yeah. So, and then 7-6-207B1 is the registration requirement for these committees. And so basically, once they get $500 in contributions, they've got to register with the Secretary of State within 15 days, and then renew that registration annually for as long as that committee exists. And so, and then the other part of the law is 7-6-220, which is the reporting requirements. And so they are required to, once they spend $200 or more, they're required to report to the Secretary of State. And, so the report is due on the 15th of the month after they spent the money. So if they sent the mailer out in September and cut the check, then they should report by October 15th. And it's the same contribution and expense information as your candidates. So that's going to be who they are, and then who who donated money to them, their names, their occupations, their address, the same information you would see on a candidate's expenditure report. And then they would have to list how much money they spent and with whom for these mailers. And so again, it's all around transparency, around showing where the election money is going. And Scott, you want to talk about the mailers themselves? We have an example here.
Yep.
That's got some key components that you've got to take a look at or pay attention to.
Obviously, these are some of the some submissions we received here. We've got well, I call him the chair, because the state agency's experience from a session ago, but you can see that. Oh,
Here,
Yeah.
double click on the side one. I hate this
mhm.
being able to just present. Okay, there you go.
And you can see the one on the right is Senator Blank Johnson, and you're looking for return address and the disclaimer that is highlighted, I think, right here on the bottom. I can't do that touchpad.
Okay. Sorry, we've got technical difficulties here. Sorry. So, right here down at the bottom, you'll see where the return address is. There should be an organization name there and a return address, and then a specific disclaimer that says that this mailer was paid for by the organization or the group, and that it's not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. So that's what helps you determine, based on what we said the criteria was in the law earlier, that it's an organization. It's obviously spending more than $200 on these mailers. And it is not working, it's claiming that it's not working in coordination or under the authorization of any committee or candidate. And so, so those are the tells, right, that you're going to be looking for. And so once you get something like this, if you want to know who's paying for this, who's behind this, the next step that you're going to do is go to the Secretary of State's financial disclosure website, and you're going to check for the registrations and reports. And so this is the web address for the disclosure site. And this is a screenshot of the homepage. And you'll look, the first one actually is committees I think to search committees, or maybe it's the second one. But you're gonna, in this box right here, where I've got it circled, you're just gonna put the name in for this case, it's New Generation Inc. You're gonna we're gonna type that in and then hit enter. And then when you do that, as of at least today, when I was putting this PowerPoint presentation together, you're not going to get any results back. So they're not registered, they're not reporting. So that's the issue here. One of the things you can do to take it a step further to see if you can find out who these people are for purposes of helping the Ethics Commission narrow this down is to go to the Secretary of State's business search page, and we've got that link here at the bottom. And then from there, you're going to just search for the company name. So I put in New Generation here just to make it as wide as possible. And then the result was we had this whole list of new generation companies with new generation in the name. The thing about it is with the Secretary of State's office, if you've never registered a business before, you have to have a unique name. It has to be unique enough that it can't be easily confused with another one. So you'll see that we can pretty much discount these because the names pretty much give away what they are in terms of churches and daycares and things like that. But there are two that we want to pay attention to. The first one is this one down here at the bottom that says New Generation Inc. Because on the mailer it says New Generation Inc. and it's based out of Little Rock. We have a Little Rock return address. The issue that raises the red flag here is that it's got a forfeited charter, which means it's no longer a business. It's not legally a business according to the state. So that's kind of a red flag. Here, what you can do is that this is a hyperlink. And so you can click on to find more information, which will show you the results of that here in just a second. And then the other one we want to pay attention to is this one that just says New Generation. So because it doesn't, I mean, it's a possibility just because of the vagueness of the name. And so when we click on these, it pops up with the more detailed information for each entity. So we can see for this one on the left, this is the New Generation Inc. It's a for-profit corporation. It's got a forfeited charter. It was started in 1993. James Rusher is the registered agent. You can go and Google him and see who he potentially is. I think I Googled him. He's a lawyer, but not politically, didn't seem to be politically connected or in working in the industry in that way. And so from there, we go to New Generation, just the plain one. And as you can see here, it's a nonprofit corporation, and the address is 400 West Capitol Avenue in Little Rock. And if you look up that address, it's the address for the law firm Friday Eldridge and Clark. And then you look at the registered agent and the officers and Kevin Crass. Kevin Crass, you Google him, and he's a partner at Friday and the Friday firm, and he is also, according to his bio, Mike Huckabee's personal attorney since 1997. Shane Henry, you look him up. You go to his LinkedIn, and one of the first things on there is that he lists that he's general counsel for the Sarah Sanders for governor campaign since 2021 to present. So I know people don't look at update their LinkedIn's often sometimes, so I haven't been able to find any recent campaign expenditures from her campaign to him, but it is pretty damning that he still has general counsel for her campaign on his LinkedIn. And then the third person, this Jonelle Caldwell, when you look her up, she is the former president of the Arkansas Board of Education under Mike Huckabee, and then was also in 2023 appointed to the governor's mansion district zoning commission by Sarah Sanders. So these are all obviously Huckabee loyalists. And if you look within the context of who's the beneficiary of these mailers, they are all in these targeted Senate districts. So we've seen them. We've got reports of Rodney Wright, who's running for Kim Hammer's seat in Sling County, Bobby Ballinger in District 28, Trey Bodert Bohannon in Stuttgart, running against Caldwell, and then Blake Johnson in Northeast Arkansas. So obviously those are key races and also I understand I've seen pictures of these mailers that are also on behalf of the governor herself. So obviously if you can come to your own conclusions about the circumstantial evidence that we've uncovered so far about this, and you can certainly look it up. I've given you the web links so you can see for yourself. So here, so this is what a little bit of sleuthing can dig up for you in terms of this. And so, Scott, did you want to talk about the problem here, or okay, so the problem with this, so we're encouraging people to file complaints with the Ethics Commission, but we want to manage expectations that it's probably a 99% likelihood that it's going to be dismissed, and that's okay. We're fine with that. That's fine. And we're going to talk about this. So what the problem is that these mailers intentionally, because if the people who we think we are behind them they're obviously very experienced operatives and attorneys. And so they intentionally skirt the definition of what an independent expenditure is, because in the eyes of the commission and a lot of folks, because they hang on the word expressly. And so they like when it comes to that specific phrase, which is not defined in the statute, they like to look for magic words like vote for or vote against. And these mailers specifically don't have that, right? And so the argument is going to be, and has been to folks that have talked that we've talked to that have said that they've talked to staff at the commission, is that they're not going to see it as a violation because it doesn't specifically have those magic words. That's a problem. And I know that's a huge problem because it creates a loophole in the transparency law that's big enough for an 18-wheeler to go through.
Yeah,
So,
they also told me that with the verbiage call so and so at,
uh-huh.
that's also a key word that allows them to skirt.
Yes. So they have very carefully crafted language right around, and it all is centered around this word expressly. The problem is the word expressly is not specifically defined in law. And Adam, you may need to help me with this, but since you've got more legal experience, but from what I understand, Citizens United and a couple of other Supreme Court cases have said that while one court case established this magic words doctrine in the 70s, Citizens United came back and said, no, we've got to construe towards transparency. And so there's an objective test that can be applied to this, especially since there is no specific definition in the statute, where you look at context and timing and other things that are more in line with what the standards are for print, for broadcast um, advertisements for campaigns.
Yeah, and I think under normal circumstances you'd submit that question to the AG to get an opinion, but we all know
Yeah,
what would happen there. Which honestly, that may be a positive step forward just to have that vague opinion.
yeah.
And then to the point that we can get precedent at some point down the road. I don't know, maybe that's helpful, but I can help you look into it.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to do really is to build the evidence base and the public record around this, that to say, these magic words aren't the only thing that's gonna, that, how do I put this? That the voter is not so unsophisticated that they have to have those specific magic words to know that this is an advocacy piece for a specific candidate, right? To influence an election and a vote. So why we want people to file these complaints is because we're the evidence. Your understanding of what this message, the implicit message of these mailers is the most important of all. And so if you, as the voter, as a regular, reasonable voter, interprets this mailer to say, vote for this candidate, then that needs to be put on the record, right? And then it's just common sense. You don't need a law degree to get how this works. A flyer shows up a week before the election and it says that the specific candidate's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you should call them and thank them for being so wonderful. I mean, we're not stupid here. And then it takes away their hiding place too. We are forcing the commission to either dismiss this complaint and say we're only looking for magic words, or to force them to acknowledge the tension there in these interpretations of law. So it's really, again, to build that paper trail and to build that document base, so that when we go to advocate and say, no, this law needs to be cleared up and we want more transparency and we want to close this loophole, no one can say, well, we never understood this to be a problem before, right? And we don't give them any plausible deniability to try to minimize the movement. So going through with that, any questions at this point on why we're doing what we're doing? Um, okay, if not, we'll move on to the commission and the complaints process. And so, I want to just give some context about the Ethics Commission, its composition, and where it is right now in time, because it is a heavily unstable, compromised organization at this point for various factors. The first one is that the longtime director, Graham Sloan, retired at the end of last year, and so they have a brand new interim director. She's a longtime staff attorney, but again, I mean, she's not going to want to rock the boat on anything. Um, the chair, Wendy Johnson, she's a lame duck. Her term expired on the 31st as well, December 31st. And and then Commissioner Miguel Lopez is also a lame duck. He's the racial minority slot that the AG refuses to appoint a successor to. So they're both serving until the Lieutenant Governor in Wendy Johnson's case gets around to make an appointment. She's going to have, because of the commission composition requirements, she's going to be required to appoint a woman. So maybe Natalie, you should apply to be on the commission. Or anyone else. I think it would be a great opportunity to get a real citizen on there, or at least to make the attempt.
Well, I might nominate someone, but my plate's pretty full.
Yeah, but Duncan Baird is a fairly new appointee. He was appointed by House Speaker Brian Evans, and then Jason Tolbert was appointed by Senator Pro Tem Bart Hester. And I realize now that I left the fifth person off. I think it's Dr. Stephen Bannon. He's a minister, and he was appointed by the governor on September 29th after a 10-month delay or vacancy. And so you can tell how seriously um, they take the commission and its composition. And obviously, there are lots of conflicts just from the manner of how um, of the people of who they're appointed by, and so we're so you can tell that this is not going to be a commission that's going to step out of any lanes or do anything out of the box, and is going to be very quick to keep things as they are. So that's kind of the policy environment we're working within in terms of the regulatory function of the commission. So keeping all of that in mind, just wanted to let you know. But again, it's not we're not expecting to win any cases against these folks or with the Ethics Commission, and that's that's not why we're doing this. We're again building the record and trying to build the movement and the awareness of the general public about this issue and the loophole. So then moving to filing a complaint. So there's a specific process that has to happen. And what you're going to do, first of all, is go to this website here and download the complaint form. It's a PDF. What I can do is I went ahead and just kind of filled this out for example purposes, but I can send a copy of that filled out version out with the materials so that you can just have one that's already filled out if you need it. And so the first part is there's three parts to this basically, this complaint form, but it is necessary that in order for them to take this complaint, you have to have this form and have it filled out. So the first part is you're going to, write the name and address of the organization or the individual that you're filing the complaint against. And so in this case, it'd be New Generation Inc. And then we have the PO box. If you have a specific person, what their position or title is, and then, any phone numbers that you have for them. So that's the basic. If you wanted to add, if you did your own investigation and found maybe more pinpointed information about who these people are exactly, based on your knowledge and belief, and you wanted to add some more detail here, feel free. This is just from the basics of the mailer. And then here, on part two, they're going to ask you to state in your own words the detailed facts and actions of a person or organization named in the complaint. And this is not enough information. This is not enough space. So what you're just going to want to say is just a brief one sentence summary of what you're filing your complaint about. So here I just say, the complaints against New Generation Inc. for making an independent expenditure without registering or reporting as required by law. Please see the detailed attached statement of facts. And so you can attach other sheets of paper that have the detailed written statement of facts. And that's what I recommend that you do. So you just need to put on the form to see that other paper so they know to do that. So then the bottom of the form is
Any
very simple and
questions?
straightforward. What you're going to do is it has to be notarized. And so you're just going to, if you've never had a document notarized before, you take it to a notary public. You sign it in front of them, and then they sign off that they witnessed that you've signed this. So you're going to, fill out your name and address and phone number, and then you'll take it to the notary, sign it in front of them. They'll sign off on that. You have your notarized form, and it has to be notarized. They will not accept it without a notarization. So you're basically swearing under penalty of perjury that everything that you're providing is true and correct to the best of your belief and knowledge. And then the next part is that you want to write that statement of facts. So this statement of facts, it can be as long or as short as you want it to be, as long as it contains the required information. So first of all, you want to stick to what you know or to believe to be true, because again, you're swearing under oath to this. And so you don't want to go too far off into any conspiracy theories or anything like that if you have them. And you want to give as much detail as you can about what you received and when you received them, that date. Again, like we talked about, there's several date triggers that happen regarding the registration and reporting. So you want to try to give the commission as much information about timeframes as you can. You don't have to have specific exact dates, but if you started receiving these mailers in September, you're going to want to note that and say that I've gotten them through whatever date.
Got a
I would say,
question for you.
yes.
All right. We're remote. We, at least two or three of us, are not in a district
Uh-huh.
that have physically received flyers.
Okay.
However, they've been handed to us from the other districts.
Right.
So are we allowed, if we're not in that district, are we allowed to complain?
I believe we are. I mean, you're in possession of the evidence of an unregistered
I've
district.
got
Someone,
photos of it. I don't have the flyers themselves. I've
okay.
gotten
Well,
sent a ton of photographical evidence.
okay. Well, I think that's going to be slightly different. And so I'd recommend, so someone, for instance, someone in Northeast Arkansas came to me and first tipped me off about the new generation folks. And so I just asked her to send me
Yeah.
the cards. And so that's what she did. And so I'm just going to file on her behalf. And then I got permission to, disclose her name and information to the commission for their investigation. So that's how I would handle it. I don't,
Okay.
there's not, there's no, it basically says any citizen can make a complaint. And so there, in the law, there's no restriction that you have to be a voter in a specific district in order to file a complaint on a mailer. Um,
Okay. The
so,
other thing I was going to ask while I'm talking is the names that you guys have discovered. We don't
mhm,
have solid proof that's who's doing this. So is it
mhm.
better to include their names or leave them out and let the Ethics Commission make their own judgment?
So I would say if you were inclined, I would either leave them out if you don't feel super comfortable, but if you're comfortable enough that you think that these are likely suspects based on the again, the pattern of behavior and the circumstantial evidence, I would just include that in the statement of facts of, I did this research and I looked, I went to the Secretary of State's financial disclosure, couldn't find anything. So I went to the Secretary of State's office and this is what I found. And so these seem to be potential based on the timing and the context of these specific races. There's a possibility that these are the people involved
Okay.
and just frame it that way. I wouldn't maybe specifically file a complaint against them, but in my statement of facts and in my submission of evidence, say, well, this is what I found for the ethic for the staff's consideration in their investigation, and leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're probably never going to have a smoking gun email that says this has been coordination or these are the people cutting the checks. But again, when you take everything into consideration, I can't conclusively rule them out. We'll just put it that way. And so let's see here, going back to my, um, are there any other questions or comments at this point? If not, I would just say, you want to give as much detail about it as you can when you receive the mailers and what you got. You want to submit all the mailers that you get. Technically, if they were going to really investigate these, they would be individual violations, right? Each mailer, different mailer that you have. And don't feel like you have to be a lawyer or an investigator. I mean, that's the commission's job, and they very specifically will tell you that you are not responsible for presenting evidence or anything like that. Just submit what you have. And make sure that your complaint meets the, basic requirements of the commission to be able to accept it. So again, don't feel like you have to conclusively prove who this is. If you think that the evidence points towards a direction, you can tell them that in your, as part of your evidence submission. Um, and then we've kind of given you a sample statement of facts. And like I said, well, you'll get the slide deck and, some Word documents, templates that you can use. We really encourage, we understand people are busy and this is very kind of foreign. And so we want to give you some fill in the blank language, but feel free to put this in your own words as much as possible. That way that, they can't just accuse somebody of running a cookie cutter, ethics complaint, operation. We're just trying to give you guys tools so that you guys can be empowered to file these complaints. And so we don't want it to be like, oh, we're forcing you to do this, form letter thing that a lot of advocacy ends up doing, especially around legislation. So, but I'll just go over this real quickly. This just kind of makes sure that you hit all of the information points that are necessary for the commission to accept the complaint. And so, and this would just be on a separate sheet of paper. You do this in Word and fill it out. And so you're going to say that you're a registered voter, in this district. And, whatever the specific, I think these are all Senate districts that are impacted. So I live in Senate district, whatever. What I received on or about these dates or from this time, from September to December of 2026, I received, these attached political mailers at my home. It was for this race, and features this specific candidate. And then one thing that I would encourage everybody to do is have this sentence in here that, what your interpretation of that, and you don't have to use these words, but again, we have here, when I read the mailer, I believed it was telling me to vote for this candidate. That was its clear purpose. And so, again, being the evidence, what was your impression of this what was your impression of the message, implicit or explicit, of that mailer regarding that specific candidate and whether or not you should vote for them? So what did you, as a reasonable voter, think that this mailer was trying to get you to do? And articulate that. The problem, the group's not registered. The mailer says that it was paid for by this. And so maybe, for those people that you're filing on behalf of, it would be very good to get them to, if they don't want to file a complaint, if you can get them to at least, give a signed statement that this was their, that they received these, that this was their impression, basically a version of this, but you're filing on their behalf. And so there's some sort of attestation. And Adam, maybe you can weigh in on that thought, but that might be helpful, especially with this, in terms of the implicit messaging and the response on that. So, then you're just going to say, look, I looked at this up. They're not registered. They haven't reported. It's in my belief that they're in violation of campaign finance laws of the state. And so I'm requesting that the Ethics Commission open an investigation. And so it's just as simple as that. And again, it's really about providing them enough information that they can say, yes, we have enough to go on to be able to open an investigation and check these boxes for ourselves because we're bureaucrats. So, what they're going to be looking for is, number one, that you have given them a specific group that is in violation, that you, um, give them a violation, an allegation of a violation, which is within their jurisdiction as the Ethics Commission, because they are limited to very specific parts of the law. But this is a campaign finance issue, so this is well within their purview. So it's got to meet the criteria of naming someone specific, that it's within their jurisdiction, and that you've basically, given a sworn statement on the complaint that it's true. So what you're going to do then is, and so here's your checklist to do a complaint. You're going to fill out that form and get it notarized. You're going to write up and print your statement of facts and gather all your evidence. You're going to want to send in your mailers. If you get screenshots from the Secretary of State website to show that they aren't registered, you can print those out, attach that to any evidence that you have that you feel is relevant to this investigation and this complaint. You want to make and keep hard copies or scans of the entire complaint and your evidence for your records, because what happens is that they are, everything has to be kept confidential with the Ethics Commission until a certain point, and that's when the case, if there's a violation found and when the case is closed, then it becomes part of the record. If it doesn't get to that point, if it gets dismissed at any point, it goes into a black hole, and you're not going to, that's not the complaint, and the evidence will not be part of the public record and accessible by FOIA. So the commission won't be able to release it, but you as the person who made the complaint, if you have all of copies of all of that, you can release it at will, right? So you are not bound by any the same confidentiality that the Ethics Commission is. So that's why it's important to keep evidence of your complaint. And then you're going to either mail, and we recommend certified mail. You don't have to have them do the return card and all that and spend that extra money, but at least get the certified mail so that you have a time-stamped receipt of when it was submitted, and then you have a tracking number um, to make sure that it got there. So, you have definitive proof that you mailed it and submitted it. And then your other option is you can hand deliver it to the commission's office. That's what I do because I just live close by. So they have to have that original notarized complaint form. And they don't to be able to open an investigation. So it has to, you have to give them that original notarized form. It says on the website that you can submit it by email. I wouldn't, because we looked at the email address that it was going to yesterday, and it was still going to the old director's address. So you don't know necessarily when or how often that's getting checked or when that will bounce. So, an example of something outside their purview. So, who do they have oversight of? So, they have oversight of all elected officials and PACs and independent expenditure committees, and people who are required to file things, who aren't necessarily elected officials but are appointed to state boards and commissions, who are required to file statements of financial interest. And so, let me see if I can real quick look up can you see can you see the website? If not, let's see. So if you go to if you go to the Ethics Commission website and you click on the Citizens Complaints link, it will give you the entire list of laws that are under its jurisdiction. So like sections 28, 29, and 30 of Article 19 of the state constitution. But it gives special state employees, things like that. So it's all listed there. You can see it. I won't belabor the point too much, but yes, they have a narrow focus, and really, for most lay people, it's going to be around campaign finance violation reporting, campaign finance violations, not reporting your statement, people not filing their statements of financial interest, lobbyist gifts, or accepting gifts that they're not supposed to accept. So it's really usually around those kinds of things. Um, that you're going to be going to the Ethics Commission for. So again, yeah, once you deliver that to them, you wait for a response. And generally, they are very good about they will send you a letter for almost everything except for one thing, and we'll talk about that when we go over the timeline. I just wanted to just throw this in here real quick. please don't pay $15 at the UPS store to get this notarized if you don't have to. If you have a public library in your community, they generally have a free notary there, service there. Also, your local bank branch usually has a notary and will do it for a couple of bucks or for free. The Secretary of State also has a notary search.
Yeah, my wife is a notary, Natalie,
Awesome.
so that one's easy for us.
Oh, that's good. And then just if you're going to a bank or something, just call ahead to confirm availability and what their costs. And remember, if you haven't had anything notarized before, you got to bring a photo ID or driver's license in the unsigned form. And so this is the mailing address and physical address of the Ethics Commission. You'll get that information too, so I won't go over it. I will give you a quick overview of the timeline. Generally, if a complaint goes the entire distance by statute, it can only take a maximum of 240 days, which is roughly 8 months. To give you it, but it could be very quick. It just depends. So I'll just give you an overview. So you file your complaint. If they once they receive it, they'll log it, they'll give it a file number, they'll look over it. If it meets the basic requirements of a complaint, they'll open an investigation. You'll get a letter saying that they're opening an investigation and that to submit any evidence that you might have in your possession. And so that usually takes 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how busy they are. From there, once they open an investigation, they have up to 60 days to create an initial report to give to the commission, and they recommend that either the investigation continue or the case be dismissed. And so at that meeting where the report is presented, they'll vote. And so the only way that you'll know what happened is that if it gets dismissed, and then they'll have a public vote because this all happens in confidential session. So, so they'll uh, so they'll come out and vote on the dismissal. But if it isn't dismissed, you just won't hear anything. So, for example, back in September, about 4 months ago, I filed about 7 ethics complaints against the AG and David Ray and Ben Gilmore and John Gilmore, and I haven't heard a thing about it still. So I guess so obviously they're still investigating. And we're just waiting for notification of a probable cause hearing. So what you'll do is once it gets to the stage where they schedule a probable cause hearing, they'll, yeah, I'm shocked too, Natalie. Once it gets to a probable cause hearing, then they'll notify everybody. You can show up at the hearing. They'll hold the hearing in confidential session. They'll vote again whether or not to dismiss or to find a probable cause of a violation. If they find probable cause, they'll send a settlement letter to the person. The person can either take the settlement or they can ask for a hearing. And if they ask for a hearing, it's 30 days after that, and then they'll have a final hearing and make a final determination. Where we're likely going to end up is right about here. And it'll probably very quickly. And so what will happen is most likely that the commission will meet within probably 30 days, 30 to 60 days and dismiss the complaints because of that magic word test. So then what will happen is when they dismiss that complaint, they will send you a letter that says they've dismissed the complaint. So you'll get that letter. And so what you'll want to do is keep that letter. And so the thing about and then so the other reason why you want things because you swear on the penalty of perjury, and you want to on the facts that the facts that you present are true in the complaint. There is a point that if a case, they do have a provision in there that if it's dismissed, the person can request that that the Ethics Commission investigate whether the complaint was frivolous. And there can be a finding, and potentially they can find that the complaint was made, it was a frivolous complaint, and that, and there could be some penalties associated with it. I don't think I've ever heard of a single time that a citizen complaint has been, determined to be frivolous. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but full disclosure and transparency, that is a possibility. I think it would look terrible on the people to do that if they could even, and why would they want to come out of the shadows on that one anyway? Um, and that's why I want to emphasize again to only put in your complaint what you believe and know to be true. So just, and that's the other reason why you don't want to add too much or get into anything that you can't verify as much as you can. So with that, then the next steps that we recommend is that you file a complaint, and that you can, we invite you to email the full copy of of the complaint if you scan it, or if you want to send us a hard copy of the complaint to us, and we have our contact information on the last slide. That way, we have a catalog of what's been filed. And then when you get your letter back, especially if it's a dismissal, immediately log that and share it with us, because that's going to be a key piece of evidence that we can again use for a greater movement to have a policy response to close that loophole. And then the bonus step that we recommend is that you use this opportunity to amplify your voice through this issue. So you can send a copy of I would send a copy of the complaint to both your legislators, and tell them that, under no uncertain terms, and you can either send a complaint or send a copy of the dismissal. It's probably more powerful to send a dismissal and say, look, I'm mad, right? That this is creating a loophole that gives the people with money, the ability to hide what they're doing and who they're working for, in order to influence these races. Or whatever it is, that your response is to that dismissal, and then to share it with the local media and your reporters. As a former reporter, we love this kind of stuff, so especially in a small town where maybe it's a slow news day. So and some of us still like to keep people accountable. So those are the next steps. This is our contact information for Scott and I. These are our email addresses. And you can also reach us on Substack or Facebook, on the Facebook, Tracking Arkansas Facebook. And so that's about it.